Uh, Greetings and good day. Happy new month. I hope you all are doing better than good. As for me, I'm very happy and grateful that we're now in a new month and we are in the third episode of the Being a Man. That is the adventure from boyhood to manhood. I want to thank you for this another groundbreaking conversation on the adventure from boyhood to manhood. As you do know, this is an exploration of a man's journey from boyhood to manhood. And I am Ola Akin, your regular host on this conversation series. I'm also known as the humanitarian guru and founder of Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network here in Nigeria, Africa, and also incorporated in the United States. I'm bringing to us tonight a phenomenal personality who will be joining us to share with us his adventure from boyhood to manhood. As you know, the goal of this groundbreaking conversation being in is to interview men from different parts of the world who will share with us how their father influenced them as a child and in their youthful days, as well as the cultural influences, how it affects and shapes the sense of manhood and masculinity and fatherhood that they experience now. And they also reveal to us how they cope with being a man and how they cross the bridges of the journey from boyhood to manhood. As we still expect our guests to come, one thing I want to share with our audience today is, when boys don't learn, men do not know. And the highest form of any education you can get is to get into the life experience of guests. So today, girls, we have the opportunity to share with us his own adventure into mentoring. And I'm just privileged to have this great man in the house. Before I bring him on board, I want us to understand that right now, a lot of young boys out there, they are confused about what kind of man they want to grow up to be. They somehow confused of their identity. And we have a man here who has been through all this and willing to share with us how he's been able to navigate the journey from boyhood to manhood. So a great number of boys are out there, like I said, growing up confused in their homes, in the place where they had the privilege of uh, sharing life with other men and growing up. Our greatest test as people is whether or not we'll be able to cultivate these young boys to become healthy humanitarian, good husband, productive citizens who will contribute to their immediate society. So with me in the house, I have Dr. Raphael James. He's a man of many and multi-talents, quite very exposed. When I look at his profile, it baffles me how to begin to introduce him because I do not actually know where to start. But I'm going to summarize the little I know in words that best describe him, and you will hear others from him as the conversation continues. Now, Dr. Raphael James is the publisher of the National Biographer magazines here in Africa. I have the privilege and opportunity to have gone through some of this great work. If you haven't, please request for copies of this national biography to amaze you the high profile individuals and the quality of research he has done in profiling their biographies is amazing. In fact, some of the tricks and the secrets that I'll be sharing on this platform, I've actually learned from him. I haven't gone through some of his work. He's also the author of 23 books, multiple awards from different parts of the world. I mean, global. He is the founder of Center for Research, Information Management, and Media Development here in Nigeria. CRIMMD. He's a historian, he's an education tourist. I can count on and on, but I don't know how to go beyond it. So, Dr. Raphael James, we are pleased to have you with us. Good evening, sir.
Thank you so very much, and good evening.
And how has the new month? How did you welcome the new month? How are you feeling today? It's like the way you position your camera. Can you allow your camera to self-auto rotate? Maybe we can have a portrait form.
Okay.
Because at the start now we're having. Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Perfect.
Okay.
This is wonderful. Now, before we actually proceed into exploring your adventure from boyhood to authentic manhood, can you take a moment and introduce yourself and share with us, I tell you, what life was growing up as a boy in your family?
Okay, let me see how many I can recall. The man was a boy, for sure.
Yes.
So we all started somewhere. Let me put it this way. Interestingly, I happens to be an only child. And yeah, being an only child gave me some very unique lifestyle for me. I was not born in Nigeria. As much as I'm not going to disclose where I was born for now, but I was not born in Nigeria. But my parents brought me back to Nigeria in 1974 when they came back to Nigeria. And part of the challenge I had then was the challenge of learning how to speak English language, which is the lingua franca in Nigeria, and to speak my native Igbo language because I am from Abia State. So there was serious communication barrier for me. And most times when I want to express myself, I had to use body language and hand signs to express and tell people what I wanted. So it wasn't very, very easy for me. But the most interesting thing was that I was willing to learn very fast. I'll give you an example. As of when I joined primary school, from where I was coming from, I was in standard 3. When we came back to Nigeria, they were using the standard system of education. So I was supposed to even be going to standard 4. But when I came in, we had a primary section in Nigeria. So the school felt that since I couldn't speak English language and I couldn't speak Igbo language, that they should take me back to primary 2. So I was like,
Wow.
wow, how can you take me to primary 2? But I mean, there was nothing I could do because communication was a problem. So they kept me in primary 2 for the first term. By the end of the first exam in primary 2, I was promoted to primary 3. By second term exam, I was promoted to primary 4. So under 1 year, I did my primary 2, 3, and I got into 4, which ordinarily that is where I was supposed to be. And by the time I got to primary 4, I had picked up so much with the English language. And I've also picked up to some extent with Igbo language. So it made it easy for me to fit in. One of the things I talk about most times, mostly when I talk to young people, was that why during this particular period where I had this challenge, in my primary 3, I was made the first junior head boy of the school.
Wow.
Despite the fact that I couldn't communicate in English very well, but you could actually see in me that there was this leadership potential inside of me. And my teacher, I remember him very well, Mr. Wobani, felt that they should give me that position of responsibility. So as a junior head boy in primary 3, I was overseeing primary 4 to primary 1. And the primary 4 pupils did not like the idea that the primary 3 pupil was So what happened was that most times after school hours, they would wait for me at the T junction, going back to the village, and they would beat the hell out of me. So it became common that almost every other male child in the class, any other boy, would pick up a challenge to beat me. And it's not as if I wasn't physically strong to fight them, but I had this fear in me because, one, I don't understand. In fact, I don't even understand when they're planning to beat me until when they start punching me. Because when they are saying it, I won't know what they're saying. And the next thing I'll hear is boo boo. And before you know it, they will beat me. So one of these days, they beat me and I went home to tell my auntie. I was staying with my auntie and my grandmother. And my auntie was like, today is the last day anybody's going to beat you and you come to tell me. We are going back to that particular family and you're going to call, I'm going to call that boy out. You're going to fight and beat that boy. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And sincerely, by the time we got there and the boy came out, because my auntie was standing there, I fought and I beat the hell out of the guy. In fact, when they were pulling me out, I was still fighting. And that was the first signal that I sent to my mates that, hey, don't take me for granted. I have some skills hidden in me. Okay, from there, by the time I got to primary 6, I didn't get a head boy position in primary 6, but rather I was made the school, I was actually the school timekeeper. I was the school timekeeper from primary 3 to primary 6. And at primary 6, I became the school fruit prefect because we have a lot of fruits in our trees of fruit in the school. I was made a fruit prefect. Talking about being the timekeeper, my auntie prepares akara in the morning. So it was my duty.
That's being.
Yeah, it was my duty to hawk the akara before going to school every morning. So no matter what happens, I must finish hawking and get to the school by 7:30 latest to ring the morning assembly bell. So that actually created promptness in me that even till date, I am not that kind of person who talks about African time. If you tell me an event is for 12 o'clock, I'm there by 11:30. I go ahead of time to prepare because these have become part of me growing up. So got to primary 6 and I sat for the common entrance. I got into secondary school. Now, by the time I was in primary 4, like I said, because I'm an only child, I was always thinking of what I could do to keep me busy. And I came down to Lagos and I watched a movie that had to do with a stamp collector, and I became a collector. I started collecting stamps. In fact, let me tell you what I was doing in primary school. I was collecting postage stamps. I was collecting buttons of dresses. In fact, I was so terrible that if you wash your school uniform and you spread it, and I walk past the wire where you spread your school uniform, a button must disappear from your school uniform. So I was collecting buttons. I was collecting marbles. I collected marbles. I still have my marbles that I collected from my primary school days. I still have my buttons. I still have my marbles. I have my stamps. Then I started collecting coins. Now, the unique thing about collecting coins was that these are not things that were common in my village, in the community. In fact, I was the only strange person doing those things. So for me to get this coin now, I have to go to ritual points where people do rituals or sacrifices. In those days, they will put the golden coins with holes there for the sacrifice. So I will pick the coins. I leave their food. I'm not interested in whatever they use for sacrifice. Most of the times they use the thick pap, that's like the one you call agede, and maybe sometimes they make rice.
Let me take you there.
Okay.
Are you not afraid of the superstitions that was behind that? If you go take something from the ritual food presented at those junctions, that those demons will be after you. How dare you be bold to overcome that kind of superstitious belief that scare people away from going towards those foods presented at those tea junctions?
You know, in Igbo language, we call the word for Satan or devil is ekwensu. Ekwensu literally means if you believe, it comes to pass. Now, because of where I was coming from, I didn't believe in those stuffs. I'm not saying they were not real, but I didn't believe in them. So I didn't see any big deal with the fact that I saw coins on the floor or I saw coins by the riverside to go and pick. I picked. In fact, it got to the point by the time I entered secondary school, my roommate in secondary school, his name was Ikechi. Ikechi will go with me and he will even make a note. Sometimes he will write notes and tell them that Mami Water wants to eat chicken. And the next day somebody will come and sacrifice the whole chicken.
And what happened?
and my friend will go and carry the chicken away. But one thing I didn't do is I didn't eat those things. I didn't eat, but I collected most of the coins I have till date. Those were the places where I got those coins. So I got into secondary school. In my first year in secondary school, I was very good with mathematics. That most of my friends started calling me Chikobi. That was my nickname in secondary school, year one, Chikobi, which is after the focus of mathematics. But my own nickname that I gave myself was James Bond. I was just like James Bond. James Bond, yes. In fact, I wish I could get a picture of me in secondary school. I had this big portfolio where my mates were looking for small bags and nylon bags to go to school. I had this big box I inherited from my mom, and I boldly wrote on it, James Bond. So whenever I pass, people will be like, oh yeah, James Bond. So I became so popular in secondary school. By the time I got to...
Dr. Raphael, there's something we need to take out from why you choose the persona of James Bond to be your nickname. What informed that kind of you or giving yourself that name? What actually informed you? What is it about James Bond that motivated you that you want to ascribe that nickname, or you ascribe that nickname to
myself? Okay, I watch a lot of James Bond movies, and you know my own surname is also James. And one thing I picked from the film, from James Bond movies, is that whenever he wants to introduce himself, he will say, my name is James Bond. Or he will say, I am James Bond. So you first pronounce the James before the James Bond. So I keyed into it that most time I introduce myself as, my name is James Raphael. It became a part of me. So, but because I also love actions, I am not a dull person. I am full of life. I am 24/7 active. Let me put it that way. Even when I'm sleeping, if you actually put a video camera and watch me sleeping, you see me kicking in my sleep. So I'm always active. So I just felt, well, like, I'm just like James Bond. And I did a whole lot of kind of things that James Bond did. For example, in my secondary school days, if I pile my books up on a table and I leave the room and you come and you touch that book, I will tell you exactly where you touch the book, because for every time I set what I have, till date, whenever I leave something, I mark exactly the way they are arranged. And those are one of the tricks that James Bond uses in surviving, because James Bond will know when somebody would have entered his room or when somebody would have planted a bomb somewhere. He can actually pick those things out. So that became part of me. So like I was saying,
this special quality, Dr. James, this special attribute or characteristic you talk about, Do you emphasize right now that one of your children probably will have picked this from you?
Yeah, I think my son is probably doing the same thing that I did while growing up, to a large extent, yes.
But how will you describe your father growing up?
Sorry?
How would you describe your father? I mean, your father growing up with this kind of James Bond character. Was that character also something that you noticed from your dad?
Well, not really. Like I told you when we started this conversation that I was in the village growing up with my grandma and my auntie. So my dad and my mom were staying in Lagos. I wasn't that close to them. So there's a whole lot of things about him I didn't really know. I don't know if you get that.
Really?
Yes, there are a whole lot of things that I didn't know. And a few things that I knew about him were things that, to me, as a young man growing up, were things I didn't really like. I'm sorry, but that is actually the fact. For example, my dad used to be a smoker. I never liked smoking for whatever reason. And when I had the privilege of reading Things Fall Apart when I was in primary 6, and I read the part where Okonkwo said that whatever the father liked, that he was not going to do it. And I said, okay, yeah, if I'm not going to smoke, I'm not going to take alcohol. And till date, that has been a part of me. In fact, if you're smoking interestingly, the first book I wrote, I started writing it when I was in secondary school. And by the time I finished secondary school, I was done with it. Unfortunately, I couldn't publish it then. The title was Why and How to Quit Cigarette Smoking. And I was doing that book because I wanted my dad to stop cigarette smoking. And I tell you today, writing that book had been the greatest motivation I have as a young man growing up. Because by the time I was done with the manuscript of that book, and I came to Lagos, I just finished secondary school and I came to Lagos, and I mentioned to my dad that I just wrote a book on cigarette smoking. And I told him then, that was 1984. I told him, I said, I wanted to go and see Professor Lukoye Ransom-Kuti, who was the Minister of Health then. My dad felt it was impossible. He felt there was no way this young man is going to go and see a minister. And he laughed at me and he left for work. But I wasn't discouraged. Rather, what I told myself was that, I mean, what's the big deal? Professor Ransom-Kuti has one head, I have one head. So why can't I go and see him?
Really?
So I dressed up, and I didn't know my way around Lagos because I just came into Lagos from the village. So I asked people around me, and they told me that the Federal Secretariat was at a place called Obalende in Ikoyi. And I came and I took a bus. I took a Molue bus. It was my first time of entering a Molue bus. Very funny, I paid at every bus stop that the bus stopped to pick passengers because I didn't know the route. So for every time the conductor came to me,
that was actually a JJC experience because you never knew.
The conductor came shaking his coins. I dropped my own coin until we got to Orile, and one elderly man was like, "Okay, you don't pay all the time. You pay only once." But anyway, that's a long story because I was already at my destination. So I got to the Ministry of Health. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see the minister that day, but I went to the ministry, and I want young ones listening to me to take note of this. I went to the Ministry of Health 23 times, 23 times covering a period of 4 months. So for every opportunity I had that I had transport money and my dad has gone to work, I would dress up and go to the Ministry of Health. On the 23rd time, I had the privilege of setting my eyes on Professor Lukoye Ransom-Kuti for the first time. And the moment I saw him, I told myself, nothing is going to stop me from seeing this man. He was seeing a friend off to the elevator. So the moment the friend entered the elevator and he turned to walk back to the office, I blocked him. I was young, relatively young. Though I was doing boxing because I had registered with boxing at the National Stadium then. So I had some beautiful biceps. But that notwithstanding, I blocked him. And I was trying to introduce myself very fast because I felt I didn't have the time. This man is going to walk into his office any moment. And when I spoke the first time introducing myself, he told me to calm down. So I tried to slow down. He said, yes, what did you say? I said, my name is Raphael James. And I just wrote a book on how to stop cigarette smoking. And I want you, sir, to write the foreword of this book because you are the Minister of Health. And he asked me, is that all? I said, that is all. And he said, okay, let's go to my office. Now, this same man that I've been there for 22 times without seeing him, when we got to the door, he opened the door for me and he told me to walk in. I mean, like flying. Of health for the Federal Republic of me. The secretary was smiling. So we ushered me into his office and he pressed the bell. He pressed the first bell once. He said, he was referring to me. The Minister of Health first book, encouraging me. And I'm not stopping, I'm keep writing. So for me, growing up, feeling in the sense that my parents are, except when I come into Lagos. And if I can recall very well, one of the most wonderful time I ever had, probably with my mother specifically, was January 1977. I had come to Lagos and I was supposed to go. My birthday is January. It's always the February. Particular time, I was supposed to have that I want to witness Stack 77. Stack 77 at the National Theatre. It was fun. Yeah. I had the privilege of Miriam Makebe for the first time. I've been listening to her music, but I got to see her.
Wow. Wow. You're such a your sense of determination, how you demonstrate perseverance when you believe in your dreams and to overcome obstacles. We're going to come to all of that as the conversation continues. Okay. But Dr. Raphael, I want you to share with our audience and those who will watch this conversation, who is that man growing up that had the most positive influence on your life? Having said that you do not actually like some behavior you notice in your dad, how did you find your way? Who is that man that really helped shape your life positively growing up? Do you have such a man? Can you remember anything about such a man? Oh my goodness. We are having some technical issues with Dr. Raphael James. I do hope he will come back and join us in this conversation. It's been quite amazing. I'm going to add him again because we have to bring him back. He's been revealing to us, I tell you, and he has shared with us his demonstration of determination, and you could see his perseverance. For a young man who decided at the tender age to publish a book on how to stop smoking and taking alcohol because he did not like what it is. And his father is taking it, and he is desperately not wanting to be part of such arrangement or such lifestyle. You see a man with determination there, and from what he said he has not lived with his parents. It's been difficult growing up, living without having his both parents. Also, he has to grow. He grew up with his grandparents in the village. I'm trying to bring him back because I hope the network will allow us to continue to explore more of his adventure from boyhood to manhood. Sometimes these things happen called network, and when they happen, we adjust to the reality of what is going on. We sometimes find ourselves in situations where our parents, our parents want us to have some kind of life that, or influence us to live some life we are not interested in. And I can tell you, we have Dr. Raphael James back in the house, hopefully, and we will continue the conversation. It's been great for the little he has shared with us. I hope he gets back on and for us to continue the conversation. I will add in here and see how we can bring it on board. But for those of us, wherever you are joining us from this part of the world, we'll appreciate if you can drop it in the comment to really appreciate your joining us. Yeah, Doctor, we thank you for getting back into the show. Sometimes these things happens, there are technical issues that is bound to happen, and as a growing economy and a growing nation, this does happen. I was asking you if you had a man in your life while growing up who actually influenced you positively to at least chart the course of destiny of your authentic manhood. What do you find like a positive characteristic in this man that you want to describe? And who is this man?
Okay, I would rather say no. I can't remember as a young person having anybody that I was looking up to. Amazingly, when my headmaster was, my headmaster then, Mr. Otuono, or so, visited us in the class, and he was asking us primary 5. He said, who is your mentor? Who do you want to be like? What do you want to be in life? And when it was my turn and they asked me, I gave a very strange answer. I told him, I said, I just want to know my position in life. And the man asked, what exactly do you mean know your position in life? And I gave him I said, well, I said, sir, for example now, General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the head of state then, I said he's #1 citizen of Nigeria. He knows his position, #1. That me, I would like to know my position in Nigeria someday. And everybody laughed at me. The only influence I would say that I had to some extent, like I mentioned, was when I read Things Fall Apart. Things Fall Apart was not a recommended text for me, but I had a privilege of reading it while I was in primary 6 because one of my uncles, who was a youth copper, came from his service here and was telling us about Things Fall Apart, how he read about Things Fall Apart and the story of Okonkwo. And the next day I went to the, we had this shop. It was everything. It was a chemist, a bookshop, and all of them in the village. Just that one shop. And I went to tell the man that I wanted to buy, I wanted to buy Okonkwo by Things Fall Apart. Anyway, the man was able to get a copy of the book for me from the market. And under 2 days, I read it. And I love the fact that Okonkwo was determined to be unique. Okonkwo was determined to make a difference in life, and I decided I was going to do the same thing. Though much more later when I grew up, I could actually see some things I didn't really see because the way, in that book, the way Onoka was portrayed as Okonkwo's father, he was portrayed as a lazy man. But today I can look back and say, no, he wasn't a lazy man, he was just a musician. And music was not really selling during his own time, and that doesn't make him to be lazy. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted something that I could do that was very remarkable, something that could keep me going. I can recall that during my period in the village, people go to farm from around 7, 8 in the morning. I don't go to farm by 7. I leave for the farm by 6 a.m. And by the time most people are coming to the farm by 9, 10 o'clock, I'm going home back. And they keep asking me, when did you go to the farm? Are you not scared? What if somebody attack you? Well, thank God nobody attacked me, and those were not so unfortunate as we are today that we have people who go with cutlasses and all that looking for people to cut off their head. But then I survived it, and it actually helped me to grow. So if you ask me again, I don't have, then growing up, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody I was looking up to, except for the fact that I wanted to be strong and active like Okonkwo. And then, like I said, when I watched James Bond film and I watched The Return of the Saints, I saw something positive in those characters. I mean, these were people who were unique in their own way, and all I wanted to do in life, till now, all I just want to do is to be unique. That's all.
So you will say, let me use this, give you this particular maybe word to describe what I mean.
Okay.
That you actually draw more of your characteristics that made up Dr.Raphael James from the books you read while growing up.
Yes.
Through those books, you were able to at least develop yourself, bring out the best of this character in yourself, and also shaped you growing up.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. If you are to recommend a book to a young boy who right now is in the same shoes you were those days, what book will that be?
Things Fall Apart.
And why Things Fall Apart, Dr. Raphael? Why Things Fall Apart?
Like I said, in Things Fall Apart, there are different characters. And all you need to do is to understand these characters and the role they all played. Things Fall Apart is not just a book. It is a prophetic collection of stories that when you read it and you comprehend it, it can help you towards a particular direction in life. And that is the reason why I would recommend that. I've read a couple of, if not all of Chinua Achebe's book, but among all of them I've read, I still got hooked to Things Fall Apart. In fact, today I have about four different covers, designs of Things Fall Apart books in my collection.
Dr. Raphael James, you're also a psychologist by training.
Yeah.
And you've been a vision of hope for young people. I do not want to refer to them as at-risk boys that people call them. I want to see them as at-hope boys, boys who need hopes. And you've visited your library times again and again. How can men provide positive psychological nourishment and support for boys that are feeling hopeless in our world today?
You see, in reality, you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. I'm going to give you an example. 2 days ago, when I closed from work and I was going home with my son. My office is not very far from the house, so I normally walk home. So he was carrying my laptop bag, and we got this popular beer parlor very close to my office. And by the time we got there, we saw lots of people. It rained that evening. The weather was a bit cold, but there were a lot of people there drinking their beer, enjoying their cigarettes, and lined up their cars. And I told my son, I said, your dad is supposed to be here now smoking and drinking beer. And look at me now, carrying laptop, I'm going home. He turned and looked at me and he said, that is not a part of you.
Wow.
And in reality, that is not a part of me. Till date, I'm not saying people should not relax. I'm not saying people should not enjoy themselves. But I'm trying to answer the question you just asked. You can only give what you have. Now, for a father who don't have time for his children or for his son, there is no way you are going to build that boy to become a real man. Taking care of a boy child is beyond providing money for the mother to feed the boy. It is about you being there and guiding the boy towards a direction to follow. Young people go through a whole lot of challenges.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It appears we are having these technical issues again. I can assure we will continue to have Dr. Raphael James back on the show. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome back, sir. You got frozen there.
Yes. So when I was in secondary school, there was this guy who came back from Italy, and the younger sister used to be my classmate. So I'd gone visiting the younger sister, and she told me, "Oh, my brother just came back from Italy," and I went to greet the brother, and this guy brought lots of chocolates. I was seeing chocolate. Well, let me quote. I was seeing chocolate for the first time because I'm now in the village after a long period of time. And he gave me lots of chocolates to lick. But something strange was going on. While I was in the room with him, he shut the door. He locked the door and he took away the key. I saw him when he was doing it, but I didn't read any meaning to it. In secondary school, I was a member of the school karate club. And I was a member of the school boxing club, as well as I was also a dancer. Now, when he shut the door and put the key in his pocket, and he was putting on only his towel, I never had an idea about man to man. So he walked up to me and he started touching me. And I asked him, I said, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "Don't do as if you don't know, Jare. I'm giving you chocolate." I said, "And so?" He said, "Remove your pants." I said, "Remove what?" And it became a war between me and him. He was bigger than me, but I put up a strong fight and I was even screaming. So he had to open the door for me to go out. Now, nobody guided me in this particular scenario. Nobody have told me about things like this, that it was bad. I just felt that something was wrong. Now, if you have a young man who is growing up and the father is not there to guide him in a situation like this, what do you think is going to happen? He might just think it is something usual and he will give up for it. And that guy would have ended up having sex with him. So parents have to care for their sons. There's no two ways about it.
I agree with you perfectly, and I believe
for their sons. There are a whole lot of things. Let me say this. Let me say this, as strange as it will sound. Now, when I was going to have my first sex, nobody told me what to do. And in most cases, nobody tells the boy child. But I escaped the first attempt because the first attempt would have actually been rape. Rape because the lady in question was in class 3. I was in class 1. She was bigger than me and in everything. But again, I was scared. And because I was scared, I had to put up a fight. Then when I got home and I told my mates, and everybody was laughing at me. So if you don't, if the father is not there to tell the child, for example now, when my son is going out, I tell him, this is how to smile outside. This is where you don't even have to smile. If you're in a crowded place, don't relax. Look smart, look hard, because that is the only way to survive. So if a father is not there to guide the child for things like this, there's a high possibility that the son might get into trouble. So we have to be there for our boys.
Thank you, Dr. Raphael. I'm still going to expand more on this conversation you brought up, having to do with the father and the son.
Yeah.
I know you have a very creative son. I forgot his name now. Sorry about that. Okay, yes. I want you to share with us how you develop bonds and connect with your son, because teenage boys today are hungry for their fathers, not just to care for them, but to connect with them. And I believe that is what you were trying to say when you mean fathers should be available too. How do you connect and bond with your son, so other fathers listening to you right now can pick wisdom from there and apply it to their relationship with their sons?
Now let me answer it this way. I told you the story of when I told my dad for the first time that I wanted to go and see the Minister of Health, and how he laughed at me, saying it was not possible. But I was convinced it was possible. And that have actually helped me to groom my children. So for now, there's nothing that any of my child will say they want to do that I will not support them. My son, when I discovered that he had flair for photography, I got him a toy camera, which did not last for, I don't think the toy camera lasted for up to 1 month. Because he discovered that each time he took picture with it, he was not seeing the photograph. So he smashed it. So what I now did was, occasionally, I allowed him access to my Canon camera, but under my supervision. So he started taking pictures with it. By the time Ikem was 7 years old, he was so perfect with the camera. He understands the importance of that camera. He understands why he should not keep the camera where it will get damaged, because daddy is going to scold on him. Having said that, I make sure that practically everywhere I visit within Lagos that he could go with me, I took him along. And by the time he was getting to 10, 11, he became my tour guide. So far, my son has visited 7 states with me on tours. I just look at states I would describe as friendly, and I'll take him along when I'm going. We stay together in the same room. We eat on the same plate. We even go out in the evening, 2 of us, to go and look around. But I make sure that he's my photographer. He takes the picture. He comes back to tell me, Daddy, look at this. Is this okay? I'll say, yes, this is good. Oh, no, this is not fine. Take it from this other angle. That today, I don't even tell him what angles to take. When we go to events now, I just watch him go and take his pictures on his own, and he produces them. Eventually, he was voted as the youngest professional photographer in Nigeria. And he appeared on the front page of Guardian newspaper. And I told him, I said, your father, despite all I have done in Nigeria, I have not been featured on the cover of Guardian newspaper. You have been featured in the front page of Guardian. And I always tell him, I said, the day you do something negative, the day you do something bad, the same Guardian newspaper that carried you on the cover will come to write about you that you're now a bad boy. And that have been a kind of guide for him, that whatever he wants to do now that will probably be negative, he always look back and say, I don't want them to write something bad about me. So what I'm trying to say here is that every child, every male child have some potential in them. It is left for the parents, more of the father, to see these potentials and help the child to build up those potentials in them for them to grow. For him today, photography is a hobby. But I tell you, my son have done jobs where when he attended NAFEST at Benin, he was official photographer of NAFEST Benin, he was paid almost ₦500,000 for his photography. He has done a couple of jobs where they pay him good money. Even despite the fact that I have the camera, I've been taking pictures before him, nobody has been paying me. So we just have to help them follow a direction. For me, honestly speaking, there's nothing your son wants to do that is bad. Whatever, except if he's going to go into criminal acts. If the boy says, Daddy, I want to do this, look at the positive side of those things that he wants to do and guide him. Your responsibility as a father is to guide your son. Nobody's going to do it. The teachers in the school, it's not their responsibility for them to do it. And God is not going to come from heaven because God has given him to you as a son. It is your job for you to help him grow.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been very revealing, Dr. Raphael. I tell you. And I really know you've done wonderful work with your son. I see you as an exemplary dad. One of the things that got me attracted to you is watching your son grow. And even your daughters, they are really doing well in terms of the heart of humanitarian causes and things they've done. Let me take you on this as we continue. I know we can talk more and continue this conversation because it's interesting and a lot of people are joining. I see people from the USA more on this conversation. Thank you, Uncle Mike, for joining. Ms. Bennis, thank you for joining. Tonio Via, thank you for joining our conversation. Please kindly leave in the comment if you hear anything that resonates with you about what Dr. Raphael James said, And as well as if you have any questions for him, I will read that to him. Also, let us know the location where you are joining us from. That will go a long way for us to appreciate you more and see the visibility of this conversation. Dr. Raphael, I would like to ask you why you were growing up as a young since I mean with us since were there a time you got into trouble, and what got you into trouble?
Was there a time I did what?
Was there a time you got into trouble?
Oh
yeah. And what got you into that?
You saw the one with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm going to share a particular one with you. Okay. You know, like I said, I used to hawk akara every morning for my auntie. So there was this particular day I went to hawk akara, and there's this lady who just moved in from Port Harcourt back to the village, and the lady bought, I think, 20 kobo akara, which like 20 pieces of akara. Then it was one kobo per akara, and she didn't pay me. She said she didn't have money to pay, but the next day when I come, that she was going to pay me the 20 kobo. So I said okay. So the next day I went to collect the 20 kobo. She didn't have it. The third day, the fourth day. So this thing lingered for like 2 weeks. And eventually, I went hawking and she gave me the 20 kobo. But unfortunately for me, I did not remember that she paid me the 20 kobo at the end of my sales. So when I was about going home, I noticed that my money was complete in my pocket and there was excess of akara still remaining. And I didn't want to get into trouble with my auntie because, I mean, how do I go and explain to my auntie that the money is complete and akara is remaining? So what I did was, I sat down by the bush path and I started eating the akara to make sure that the akara. I wanted to make sure that the number of akara left corresponds with the money in my pocket. Behold, it was when I ate the 19th akara. I remember somebody gave me 20 kobo. I was like, oh my God. When I got to my account and she asked me, that lady have not paid you. I said, she has not paid me. Oh. And inside of me, I was feeling so bad. So that particular day, my auntie said, no, it's not going to go beyond today. So she put on her short, put on the second short, tied her wrapper, and she said, let's go and collect the money. I was like, oh God, why today? So when we got to the lady's place, my auntie was asking her, where's my money? Why don't you want to bring the 20? She said, I'm giving it to Raphael now. I said, Mike, you did not give me any money. Oh. It's not me. You did not give me any money. Oh. So my auntie told her, I said, Raphael, don't lie. Inside of me, I was like, oh my God, look at me. My auntie told her, I said, Raphael, don't lie. Where is my 20 kobo? The lady said she paid me. And this resulted to verbal abuse. They started calling each other names. And I was busy begging my auntie, please leave her, she will pay. And the lady was busy saying, I have paid you. I said, hey, don't worry, you will pay, don't worry. Nobody wanted to listen. Eventually, people settled them. And that evening, I wrote a letter to my mom in Lagos. And I told my mother, I said, please, send me money. I have a little challenge in the village, I need money to settle. But I didn't tell her what happened. And you know, those days, the letter have to go by post. So I went to the post office and I sent the letter. It took almost 2 weeks for the letter to be delivered, and took another 2 weeks again for the return message. Though interestingly, for the return message, my mom had given somebody who was coming to the village 20 naira notes. The 20 naira note just came out then, and this was around 77, 78, yeah. The 20 naira note just came out for the first time. So I was seeing the 20 naira note for the first time. So I went and I changed it. And I went to that lady's compound. From the gate, I just poured the 20 kobo inside her compound. And I said to her, I was talking to myself now, I said, any prayer where you don't pray for me for this 20 kobo will not catch me. I've returned your money back. So that was it.
Wow. That was a big prank anyway, Dr. Raphael. That was a big prank on your aunt and the other lady, and how you were able to manage that. That's actually really kind of you were remorseful though, but there wasn't any way you want to withstand the beating from your aunt and all of that.
And
So the kind of having that thought that I could really write to my mom and get a letter to him for her to refund that money to the village. I remember I had a similar experience when I was growing up. My mom used to sell bushmeat, and those old women, they have something they tie around their waist. They put money there like boss in the village. And once she was done selling, and what will happen is that she just leave it there. So one morning I just went into the purse. Then that should be in 1983 or thereabout. I was in the primary school, so I deep hand into her purse and I took out a note. And those days you can barely have people who carry 10 naira note or 20 naira note. It's such a big money you don't carry. So what we take to school was this 50 naira coin then, and before we had the 50 naira paper and all of that. And what you even spend, there was still 5 kobo, 10 kobo, if you remember what I was talking. So I got to school and I wanted to buy food from the food vendor. And surprisingly, the headmaster was with me. So he wanted to buy food too. I deep hand into my pocket. I had thought it was the usual 1 naira note I took. 1 naira note then was a paper note.
yeah.
I brought out a 10 naira note. The entire meal this woman brought to school is not up to 10 naira. What would And my mother wouldn't, there's no way my mother should hear that I have stolen 10 naira from the post. So immediately I saw my headmaster, what I did was that I just ran into the bush and threw the 10 naira into the bush. So the following day, my mother searched her purse and found out that 10 naira was missing and all of that. So she came to school and I said it wasn't me, I didn't know anything about it, blah, blah, blah. So by the time the headmaster tied my hand at the back, give me a scold, I led them to where I threw the money. So they got what was it? Was it some Ghanaians? In the 80s, early 80s, we have a lot of Ghanaians in those villages. So one Ghanaian man came in, went to the bush, and they saw where I threw the 10 naira note. That was a similar experience, growing up, just to do something like that. I know what it means, but I did make that confession later on that this is where I put the money. But for you to have that kind of creative ability and maybe that thought to just write a letter to your mother and all that, that was very, very, very
I still have that letter.
to see how you approach.
I still have that particular letter. Yes.
Wow. When as I visit your,
when I came to
when as I visit your,
I had to remove it and I put it in my own file.
Wow. Somebody got a question for you here,
okay,
Dr. Raphael, and the question is how have you how did you teach your children about grief and loss? Have you experienced grief and loss? How do you teach your children or boys about grief and loss?
Okay. You see, because of the way I've tried to handle them, I've actually been bringing them up to believe in themselves, believe they can achieve everything. And I remember the first time my first daughter was entered in a competition and she didn't win. I felt bad because she cried almost the whole night. But I had to sit her down and explain to her that for every competition, there must be a winner and others who did not win at that time. They are not losers. It's just that they did not win at that particular point in time. And I told her, I said, well, if you win on a Monday, you should expect somebody else to win on a Tuesday and probably somebody else to win on a Wednesday. And it is that principle they've used in growing up. Last 2 years, I lost my mother. In fact, the interesting thing was that my second daughter was the one that fed her last meal before she died. because at that point of time in
Wow.
her life, she couldn't eat again because she was down with stroke, so she couldn't eat. So my second daughter was with her and fed her a last meal. And eventually when we lost her, I know almost all of them, they were looking up at me to see what my reaction would be. And you know this thing they tell us that boys don't cry, or big boys don't cry. Big boys do cry. I cried. The only
Yeah.
difference was I did not cry in their presence. While they were there, I put myself together because I didn't want them to break down. I tried to move on as if nothing was happening. But inside of me, I've just lost my mother, and I'm the only child that she has. Of course, it was heavy for me, but then I put up a strong face. And the moment they were not there, in fact, what I did was I just used style. I went to my office, I locked myself in the office, and I did all the hee-ha, hee-ha, hee-ha. Then I wiped out the tears and I came out. Again, the same thing happened last year when I lost my dad. Again, I tried to put up a strong face, but I am human. I'm a man, yes, but I'm also human, and I have veins. So I've tried to make them to actually realize that when you cry, you're not a weak person. It's just like I always tell my son. In fact, as of 2 days ago, I was telling my son, I said, you don't have to fight to be a stronger person or to be the wiser person. As a professional boxer, I did boxing for 7 years. I don't fight outside the ring. No matter how much you tempt me, I will even tell you sorry and walk away. My telling you sorry does not mean I am weak. It actually proves that I'm stronger than you. And my children, I'm sure all of them witnessed it some 11, 12 years ago, where I was staying, my landlady slapped me. Who are on my right cheek? I turned the left cheek for her. I said, you can slap this other side too. She slapped the second time. Then I widened my chest. I said, punch me. And by the time she raised her hand to punch me, she realized that she was weak. She was shaking. And I told her, I said, if I've lifted my hand to hit you as an ex-boxer, considering the way you're even standing, because she was standing and backing the wall, if I push her with force, she will bang her head on the wall, she will probably collapse, and I'll be charged for murder. I didn't want that to happen. So I walked away. After she slapped me twice and I walked away, the husband came back from work. And the husband came to my flat to ask me, said, is it true that your girlfriend slapped you twice and you did not fight back? And I told him, sir, if I've beaten up your wife, will you come to me? He said, you are stronger than me, Amy. I will not do it. Man, no, pa. I said, well, I didn't see any reason why I had to beat your wife. One, she's a woman. I don't even fight women. Not even man. I don't fight men outside the ring. If I think I'm strong enough to fight, I'll tell you, let's look for a ring. I'm going to the ring and fight. So this is one thing I've tried to inculcate, especially into my son. I've told him severally, you don't have to fight to be a man. You don't have to. If you can develop that ability to walk away, if you can develop that ability to say sorry, one problem that most fathers are having, and they'll also to a large extent pass it to their sons, is because of the fact that they don't know how to say, I am sorry.
Wow.
We should develop how to say sorry. We should develop how to say thank you. And we should develop how to accept responsibility. Most times when things go wrong where I am, I always come out to accept it's my fault, even when I know it is not my fault. But I've realized that it actually makes me stronger. It makes me stronger to accept responsibility.
Yes, I think I want to pick you on this, and we may be wrapping up this conversation.
Okay.
You know, from what you've said, you have experienced the peak and the valleys in life.
Yeah.
I mean, the high and the low. Like, what helps you get through?
What
helps you get through?
Can you see this young man?
Yeah, I see that. How are you? I was thinking you were going to come into another.
No, yeah, he's here. He has been here before, but it's just that they didn't want to come in. He didn't want to data.
Yeah, I'm super proud of you. I've seen a lot of work you've done, and it's been very, very impressive. And I like the way that you've been able to bond with your father. And the word I need from you is those boys who do not have the privilege that you got from that. What message or what encouragement do you have? What can inspire them to do the work you do right?
Well, what I have to say to them is that everybody has it in them, has the talent in them. They just have to work towards it. My dad only helped me to develop my talent. There are other people that are out there that can help other people to develop their talent, even if their father or their parents don't want to assist them in it. So all they have to do is believe in themselves and also pray to God.
Yeah, I also want to give you this one more thing. I think maybe 2 or 3 things you're going to share with us about your father. Can you remember at the time that your father lost it with you completely? He just got angry completely. What was it on that?
My father lost.
Maybe he lost it. It got to a point of anger that he just blew up, in terms of was just angry
I
at
think he
you.
has done in
Can
front of
you
me.
remember?
I don't think.
Can you remember?
No, he hasn't done that in front of me.
Yeah, he has never gotten angry with you at all.
He has gotten angry, but not to the point that he will blow up and start making noise and all those kind of things. When he gets angry, if he gets angry in the part that I did wrong, he'll correct me. But if he gets angry in another way, he just sits on his own and I don't know, gets calm or something.
Okay. Yeah. What's the funniest thing that your father? Let him come.
With you.
No, this is becoming interesting. I really want to get something up, but it's good. Thank you for bringing your son to be part of the show. I mean, for men, some have experienced the peak of life, and some are also experiencing the values in life. And you've been through the two, experience the peak and the valleys. And some men in their midlife, they experience crisis, which some people refer to as midlife crisis. Have you had such a shift in your life? How did you get through?
Okay, let me on that note, let me first of all commend my wife. I'm from Abia State. I married from Ogun State. I married my wife. A lot of people, a lot of men married women who turned out not to be their wife. And because of that, even when crises do come, which of course we are human, they do come, we have managed to survive it. I worked as a special advisor on media matters to my state governor, 1999-2000, and I resigned. And I came back to Lagos. At that point in time, everybody thought I was mad. Everybody felt, why would this guy, I mean, you're in government house where people are making so much money and you're resigning to come and stay without employment. But I had to resign because I realized I did not fit into where I was. I realized things were not going out the way they were supposed to be. I was a special advisor on media and I gave advice on media and my advice was not being taken and things kept going wrong. And I told myself, what is the essence of being here if you don't appreciate what I'm doing? So I pulled out. So for that period I pulled out, sorry about that. For the period I pulled out, I stayed almost 2 years without a job. In fact, more than 2 years. It was the most tormenting period of my marriage. Days we had to go to bed without food. Days we would sleep hunger. And we're waking up without even knowing what the next day is going to be like. My brother, I think I've seen it all. Let me put it that way. And somehow, at this point in time, I was even ashamed to come out and go to friends because the few friends I used to run to, they were all mocking me and telling me, but you saw where you can steal money. Why didn't you steal money? Why did you leave the place and you come out? You now come and be begging for money. I remember going to a very senior colleague of mine in the media and I told him I needed a job. And he offered me a job then for 40,000 naira. And I told him, I said, sir, 40,000 naira does not even cover my transport money from where I'm staying in Ejibo to be coming to Ikeja. I'm back for a whole month and I have a family. He said, did I sack you where you were before? If you can't take the 40,000 naira job, leave it. And like seriously, it was one hell on earth of a time for us. But we survived it. The only thing I told myself was that whatever we have to manage it. In fact, at a point, I sold some of my properties for us to be able to have something to feed on. But miracles do happen. And yet,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Miracle happened. Honestly, if you ask me how it happened, I don't know. And when I talk about the center that I run, the Center for Research, Information Management and Media Development, CRIMMD, the one you're seeing on my t-shirt, I started CRIMMD at the point in time when I did not have 1,000 naira in my bank account. And I did not have 1,000 naira of my own in my house as of the time I started CRIMMD. And CRIMMD now have grown from where we had less than 20 books that I started the library with. My library is worth over 40,000 books, and I've donated over 65,000 books across the country, supporting other people to set up libraries. So, for me to answer that question, I'll say yes, I've gone through a whole lot of things, a whole lot of crises have come and gone. How did I survive it? Well, maybe I will sound like a Christian and said, now God help us. But the major thing is this. Today, I have never quarreled with my wife before. We do have misunderstanding. I'm not telling you that we never had misunderstanding. We do have misunderstanding, but even when we have misunderstanding, even my children within the house cannot even realize we're having misunderstanding, because we have a way of dealing with it ourselves. I'll bring her into the room, we talk over it. If I have to apologize to her, I tell her I'm sorry. If she have to apologize, she will tell me sorry. But most of the time, let me say this in the open, 70% of the time I said sorry. And I'm not saying sorry because I'm at fault. I'm saying sorry because I want peace of mind. I'm saying sorry because I realize that for whatever time that I am provoked and I'm angry, it affects my health. And I realize the only thing I can do to keep my health, to keep my brain sane, is for me to apologize and make myself happy, and let us live happily.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. I know a lot of our listeners, audience, they've learned so greatly from your adventure today. It was a powerful adventure. It's not something that we can finish in one episode. Maybe we're still going to have the second episode of your adventure, which you talk about the CRIMMD you run, which is now a live course, your life ambitions and all of that.
Yeah.
But on a final note, as we begin to round up this conversations.
These are some of my books.
Okay.
I tried to see if I could get the whole 23, but I couldn't get them at home. So these are some of the books I've done. This is 100 Pioneer Remarkable Women of the Century. This book was done in celebration of Nigeria at 100. And the foreword of this particular book was written by Professor Akuyili, Professor Dora Akuyili, the Minister of Information.
Of blessed memory.
This other one, Her Excellencies, the First Ladies of Nigeria. This book chronicled all the First Ladies of Nigeria from the days of James Robinson, who was the last Governor General, Colonial Governor General of Nigeria, till the days of President Muhammadu Buhari. I have this. I write mostly biographies. This is the biography of Chief Courage to Win is the biography of the first black man to become the general manager of Coca-Cola Nigeria. I did this one on General Babangida. It's titled 155 Amazing Facts About IBB. In fact, General Babangida described this book as his dictionary. And I have this one. This is a collection of speeches. The Supreme Commander. The Supreme Commander is a collection of speeches of Nigerian First Military Head of State, General JTU Agenronsi. I've done, like I said, 56 books. I've written 56 manuscripts, and I've published 23.
We're so proud of you, and we celebrate you, Doctor. I know the resource you have at your center is one of the heritage that not only to be proud of as a Nigerian, but as an African. I know you've done pretty some work, but tell us one thing no one else knows about you, or will surprise anyone to learn about you. What is that one thing that people don't know about you, or will be surprised to learn about you?
Well, I have a couple of things. I have a couple of things I've been hiding, and I just feel it's not yet time for me to let them in the open. But again, okay, since you asked me to do that, what is it? I talk a lot, and because I talk a lot, I've said practically everything about me in the public. There's nothing that is hidden. I'm an only child. I've said that. Well, that one, a lot of people never knew I was an only child, but I'm an only child. I grew up partially in the village. I came back to Lagos in 1984, and from then I started staying in Lagos. I schooled in Ado-Ekiti. In fact, Ekiti is my second state. I schooled and I served. I was the first graduate of my university, Ondo State University, then that served in the same university. So I schooled and served there. And as a copper, as a youth corps member, I generated 6.2 million naira for my university during one of my book launch. I did the history of the university.
Wow.
What is it that people don't know about me? Well, okay, maybe a lot of people don't know I run the richest private history museum in Nigeria. The richest private, even public history museum in Nigeria. My museum have been described by a lot of people as 10 museums in one. 10 different in one, yes. And I can tell you that authoritatively. If I would not want to mention the other 10 museums, but there are 10 different museums that I have visited, a lot of people have visited. Everything they have in those museums, those 10 different museums, you can find all of them inside my own museum. So I think that is quite
amazing. Amazing.
And I think I've received a total of 229, if I'm not wrong, 229 awards, including commendation letter from former American President Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. I got a letter of commendation from Queen Elizabeth long before she died. And what else? I've had the privilege of interviewing 7 world presidents. 7 world presidents so far. And we're still growing.
Wow.
We're still young and growing.
Yeah, that's a great accolade. You've been such an amazing human being. You've demonstrated a great heart for humanity for as long as I've known you. Your center is one of the best library we have within your area, where young men, young women come to study on a regular basis. I was visited when I saw where you have facilities where women learn how to make clothes, sew clothes, how to, a skill acquisition center. Some learn how to bake cake, and you transform their life. This has been an amazing work, and we celebrate you for that. On that note, what is the greatest question you have ever asked yourself, and how do you want to finish strong as a man?
What is the greatest question I can ever ask myself?
You have ever asked yourself?
Well, I've ever asked myself. Well, yeah, it's the same question I mentioned before. When will I know my position in the world? Now I'm not interested in knowing my position in Nigeria. I want to know my position in the world. United Nations Secretary General. The UN Secretary General, for example, is rated as the #1 citizen of the world, if I'm not wrong. The American president in every given time is rated as one of the top 5 citizens in the world. I want to know my position in the world. So at the point in time when I won an award from China, it was dubbed the Africa Most Remarkable Man Award. I was paid $1,000 for it. I felt at that point in time, I said, yes, okay, now I know my position in Africa. I'm #1 remarkable person in Africa, but I need to know my position in the world. That is one thing I've been asking myself and believing that someday an answer will come for it, and it has to be a positive answer. I don't want to know my position in the negative perspective. No, I want something good, something that younger people will also look up and say, yeah, I want to be like this man when tomorrow comes.
Thank you. I know that is a big quest. That's a great quest, and in search for such a quest, I believe that it will be one of those things that will drive you to give more of yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to finish strong as a man?
Well, for now, the biggest project I have on my hands, which I have to do, and I'm not doing it for myself, I'm not doing it for my family, I'm doing it for Nigeria. It's the Nigerian Museum I'm working on. I really wish you can come with your crew and do a short documentary to see what we've been able to put together on Nigerian history. It's amazing. Even me that owns them, I look at some of the things I've been able to put together sometimes and I ask myself, did you really do this, Raphael James? And until I'm able to position the museum strategically in a place where people will have access to it. I tell you, I'm not bragging. If you walk into our museum and you ask any question on Nigerian history, there's an answer somewhere there. I have collection of books. I have newspapers that are dated 1910, 1915, 1920 that are piled up in the museum, in our archive section of the museum. I have items. Recently, I got a Nigerian coin, 1910 Nigerian coin. Now, the amazing thing about this Nigerian coin of 1910 is that the coin reads the word Nigeria is on this particular coin, and it is dated 1910, before 1914 amalgamation date. I don't know if you
and the coin is dated Nigeria.
Yes, the coin have Nigeria on it, and it is 1910, before 1914 amalgamation. So these are the unique things that once I see them, they prompt me to do more research. So when I saw that coin, I started asking myself question. If there was a Nigerian coin of 1910, how come we got the name Nigeria after amalgamation in 1914? And besides, let me also use this opportunity to point out that my in-depth research work on Nigeria amalgamation, I've been able to counter one fact that is all over the media, all over our history books. A fact that I was even taught myself as a young person growing up in history, that Nigeria amalgamation was done on January 1st, 1914. No. Amalgamation was November 22nd, 1913, in London, not in Nigeria. It was announced to us officially on January 1st, 1914. But Nigerian amalgamation was not done in Nigeria, it was done in London. Now, I can say this in good authority because I have access to the documents. And I've been able to read, and I'm saying it now authoritatively. But all our history books have told us that Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914. So these are the kind of things that we do in the museum, and this is where my dream is. My dream is to position the museum in such a place and manner that people can actually come and know their history. You know, if Nigeria, our crisis today is because we don't know our history. So we keep on making the same mistake over and over and over. The day we know our history, we know where we're coming from, we will definitely know where we are going to.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raphael. Where can people find it? How can people find it? For those who are listening now and those who will listen after this episode, how can people find Dr. Raphael?
We are presently located at 138 Ejibo Idimo Road, opposite the Christland College in Idimo. Idimo is in Alimosho local government. Alimosho is the largest local government in Nigeria, based in Lagos. We are just by the major roads. We don't need to branch. We are not hiding. You will see us. Once you're driving, you will see CRIMMD Library and Museum, 138 Ejibo Idimo Road.
Wow. This is an amazing and fascinating conversation. All things come to an end. And as we can see, it's as if we exceeded the normal time, Dr. Raphael. This was supposed to like 45 minutes conversation. And we've gone beyond 1 hour. But it's very rich in terms of what you're able to put together and your adventure, how you cross all the bridges. And we want to appreciate you for sharing such a kind of adventure with us. We are very proud of you. We celebrate you, and we be so great to have such a phenomenal personality on this conversation series. Our friends, colleagues, like I do close this conversation. You are here for a reason, to live. And what does that mean? To love, to inspire, to create value, and to educate others. This, my brother has done, Dr. Raphael has done, and I encourage us to go out there to love our brothers and sisters and neighbors. Be an inspiration to people wherever you find yourself. Without creating value, you have come to rob our collective existence of your presence. So you are to add value to humanity. And lastly, if you want to live a happy life forever, you educate the next generation. On this note, I want to say thank you, Dr. Raphael. It's been an honor, and we say goodbye. Till next week when we have another episode. Give my greetings to your great son, and that we would love to have him so on this show.
I appreciate you. Welcome.
Do have a blessed day. We love you. Bye. Thank you, sir.